Her name is Deanna, and I have 4 kids, Ashlyn, Joshua, Caleb, and Jonathan. They range from age to 24 down to 18. Both Deanna and I have been Christians for over 30 years. We've been members here at Bethel since for about a year or 2, I'm not sure, but a little bit. And before that, we were longtime members of Faith Community Church, so we know a lot of you. Back at my days at Faith Community Church, I was a deacon and heavily involved in the missions committee and our missions work there, so I have a lot of history in this. So what happened when we became members, a little bit of time passed. The elders came to me and asked if me and a few other people could get together and kind of create a missions committee that would evaluate kind of what our missions and outreach strategies should be, and meet on a regular basis just to find ways to make sure that we are serving for joyful gospel advancement, both here in our church and around the world, and all of the in-between. So as you know, we have a framework that we created, and so I'll give you a little history on this. A lot of this came from something that Jack experienced. We were meeting every month to talk about what we wanted missions to be, and Jack heard Marty pray for our shut-ins, and he said, as we think about and consider missions, we want to make sure that we look at this a little bit more holistically. We want to look at how do we engage and serve each other, and as an outflow of that, the community, and then doing more outreach and missions in a more traditional way. And so that's how we kind of came up with the framework of basic wellness, being present, basic wellness in our church community, basic wellness for shut-ins and those members of our community that are not able to be with us each week, and then talking about witnesses in Jerusalem, which was covered last week, which is basically church members that are working in the community, things like the boys' home, things like outreach festivals, those types of things that we do, and we talked about that last week. And then this week we're going to talk about witnesses in Judea, which is our kind of work with mainly short-term trips and that kind of thing around North America. Specifically, right now, the current priorities are Montana and Central America, Mexico, based on a philosophy that we don't want missionaries to be coming to us and we're going to interview them, try to decide who we're going to support. No, we want to support ministries and mission work that flows from the connections we already have as a church community. And so an example of that is Greg, who is very passionate about some ministries that he's going to talk about in Montana. Part of that is some ministries in Mexico through the Spielers and their ministry. They're going to talk both about the local aspect of that, the short-term trip, but then also next week talk about kind of their family's work and how that might be a more longer-term partnership. And then my experience, which is in short-term trips to El Salvador and Central America. Then, like I said, next week we're going to talk about witnesses to the end of the world, which is more longer-term partnership with particular ministries that are really at the cusp of reaching the unreached. So just a quick breakdown of the mission committee members. It's myself, Jack, Greg, Cameron and Luke Spieler, and David Hallam, and Sarah New. If you're interested and want to be deeper, get more involved in these types of things, feel free to talk to one of us, and we would love to see if you could join that committee. So with that, I want to start with opening it up to any questions that you might have about kind of like our philosophy and what we're doing for missions and outreach. And then I'm going to turn it over to Greg. He's going to talk a little bit about Montana, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about my history with short-term missions and some things that I do. So any questions? All right, so I'll turn it over to Greg.
All right, I'm going to take that, but I'm going to get this set up so it's going. Okay, just if you don't know me, my name is Greg Unruh. As you can tell, I have a very loud voice. A lot of times I don't need a microphone. But basically, I have been doing missions since, and how I got involved in missions was being a young man and going on short-term mission trips. That began to spur my heart to further and to keep going on several short-term mission trips around the world. I've been a world traveler, been to a lot of different countries. It spurred me and my family eventually going overseas with the IMB to the Middle East, to Egypt and Sudan. So David Hallam and I have a connection there on what it's like. I can connect to him a lot of times when he talks about the toughness. The only thing is I didn't have to deal with a lot of the isolation like he had to deal with because I was on a team of missionaries. But one of the things that when it comes to, and I did this when I was in Olathe. I haven't gone on too many trips since I've been up here in Kansas City. Proper, like I said, I'm a Kansas boy living in misery, and maybe that's the reason. Yeah, that's the way it goes. But when we talk about Montana, and what do you think of? What do most people think of when they hear about Montana?
Land.
What's that? Mountains, yeah. Wide open spaces, big sky country. You can even go off one of the lists. I know one of the big things now when people hear Montana, they think of the Netflix series Yellowstone with Kevin Costner. So now that's the popular thing to do in America, is to go to Montana, own land, and have a ranch. And that's why you cannot find any place to live there anymore. Because so many people have gone there and buy land, and the celebrities now go there and they buy up the land and they have their ranches. Because my daughter was working for the part owner of the Atlanta Falcons and exercising his horses for a while. And Michael Keaton and the owner of the Atlanta Hawks, and I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. That's the place to be now. So if you're anybody and you're not there and you don't own land, then you're nobody. Okay?
That made us feel really good.
I know. I figured I'd say that because I'm a nobody too. So you guys are right in there with me. It's also the fly fishing capital of the United States, along with hunting, and it's kind of considered the last western frontier. So what do most people think of when they hear about Montana? Or not think of? That's the key word. They don't think of church. Even the people in Montana don't think of church. When it ranks 47th amongst all the 50 states in America of church membership and people actually attending church, only 35% of people claim that they are a member of a church. And we know that if you claim to be a member of a church, that doesn't mean that you attend regularly. So that's a pretty small percentage. And then you take that percentage and you find out that the number 2 one, I don't even consider a church. That's not church. That's a cult. And you've got Catholics, Lutherans, and Pentecostals then. So Montana has about 120 Southern Baptist churches. I'm being generous, I think. They claim more on their site, but I know several of them are not there anymore. They don't exist because they couldn't make it. And so if you do the stats, that's one church for every 9,500 people. There's about 1,200,000 people that live in Montana. And then you compare that with Missouri, which has over 6 million, and that's 1,800 churches, so that's one for every 3,500. So we got a lot more churches here. That's one of the things I noticed when I went there on vacations. I just didn't see very many churches in Montana. It's just one of those things that you observe and you think about and stuff like that. The other thing that people don't think about and don't know about is the Montana and Missouri Baptist Convention Mission Partnership. There is a partnership between Missouri and Montana, which I did not know about when I began to investigate, which kind of leads me to the next point, which is, what is the Montana-Missouri Missions Partnership? We'll kind of basically just...
People are here to enjoy the outdoors, they're here to escape, they're here to hide, and that includes hiding from God.
It's a place that's never had an awakening, it's never had a revival.
They do not feel like they have a need for Christianity.
This is perhaps one of the least church states in the Union, actually.
The needs of the church here in Montana is encouragement. For the pastors, there's a lot of loneliness because we are separated by great distances.
I think it kind of wears them down emotionally and spiritually. Can wear them down in their family.
I know that the power of God does amazing things, but to exist without a partnership state would severely limit what we can do and what God can do through us.
We'll have more people helping us, and so we'll be able to multiply our efforts.
Like mission trip help for VBS, or working on our buildings, trying to reach out to our communities.
Prayer resource, training, teaching, coaching, maybe even sending planters or pastors or leaders.
And we have a lot that we can offer as well, but in totally different ways. And that's the point and purpose of a partnership, is to build up both parties.
Honestly, God has been so good and so faithful to us through our church body, but we're brand new and we're just getting started, and we couldn't do it without our partners.
The Rock Church would not be here if it weren't for the partners that we had developed in the past.
So I do just want to say thanks for considering it. It's worth your time in Montana because God's on the move. Great things are going on. Love for you to be a part of it. We really would.
That was made, of course, back in 2020, 2021. So that's why there were so many people wearing masks back then, because they were duped like we were. But anyway, about 4 years ago, I took my family to Glacier National Park on a vacation. And I mean, it's pretty easy to fall in love with the beauty of Montana. I mean, that's just easy. And it just captures your eye, whether it's since I'm a Western Kansas boy, the plains and the countryside actually I find beautiful. So when people drive through Western Kansas to Colorado and they say, man, that was boring, I usually tell them, well, Eastern Colorado is the most boring. But it's so easy to see that. And I remember my middle daughter, who now actually lives there, told me, Dad, I'm going to live here. And I actually kind of laughed at her in a sense. Inside, I was like, yeah, right, because I've been saying that for years. The next year I was taking her to an internship to Montana, a work internship for college, working on a working horse ranch and dude ranch. And it was during this time that I began to research the churches in the area, and I was very disappointed with what I found. And at that same time, I reconnected with a good friend of mine in seminary who was living in Montana at that time, and still is there. And from him, I learned about the bleak landscape of, good sound churches in the area, and just throughout Montana. And my heart broke because I'm just going, here we are, in the United States, and this vast area just doesn't have the gospel. And this last year, I kind of came to Jason and Marty with some things that I wanted to talk to them about, my longing to preach and teach, because that is the gifts that God has given me. They are His, not mine. And just the gift to lead. And so I was talking about that, and soon after that meeting, I was on the internet and I found this partnership that I just showed you the video of. And I found out and discovered that my good friend that I had served with overseas in Egypt was heading it up. Hadn't seen him in 15 years. And so since I was traveling to that part of the rural Missouri, since he lives in Columbia, we met up, we had lunch, we talked about it. He put me in touch with people at the Missouri Baptist Convention. They called me right before, while you guys were praying for a job. This is just a great way how God orchestrates things in a lot of ways. While you guys were praying for me to get a new position, and He did, at the same time, these guys were contacting me because it all worked out for me to go to Montana to see my daughter in between jobs. And I wasn't thinking about going up there and doing a vision trip by any means at that time. But he called me and asked me if I wanted to go on a vision trip up there, and I said, well, I'm going in like next week. I'm going to be up there for a week. And he said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to Bozeman, and I'm going to Livingston, and I'm going to Big Timber. If you don't know where those are, and I was going to Billings, this is where those are. We're along I-90, basically the corridor just north of Yellowstone. It's considered the gateway of Yellowstone. Livingston is. And Bozeman is considered Bose Angeles because that's where all the IT people are moving from California and around the country to go. So the locals call it Bose Angeles. And Bozeman is one of the fastest, along with Billings, one of the fastest growing cities in Montana. And there are very few churches in Bozeman. Like I only know of one, just talking to the guys. And there's another one, a church plant they call it Bozeman, but it's really in Belgrade, which is kind of they don't like to be called a suburb of Bozeman, but that's kind of what it is. And that's where my friend in seminary lives. He's not the one that's planted that church. But anyway, I go up there. He puts me in contact with several people. Their name is Lance, Steve, and Joel. Joel was just a happened meeting through another guy, Steve, and Joel's the one that is now planting a church through the support of the church in Livingston in Big Timber. And I'm sitting there the whole week, and I'm meeting this guy, and I'm going, my daughter lives here. So put him in contact with my daughter, which has just been a blessing. That there is that, because that's an answer to prayer. Because I pray all the time that God would intervene in my daughter's lives through other people. that he would bring into their life, and here he's done it right here. So I've kept connected, and I've been praying about how myself, but really how Bethel Baptist might be involved in this partnership as we go along. This is just this is just to capture here. Oh wow, that's so beautiful. That's around Big Timber. The crazy mountains, this is just perfect because I'm kind of crazy myself, but the crazy mountains are the mountain range that you see right, you just can't miss them. They're just right there when you're looking out of town. And I've been up in those mountains. They're not easy to get into, by the way. But to keep going, how can Bethel Baptist be involved? What's the point of contact here? Well, one is to begin to pray, because that's literally what I've been doing. It's like, God, I don't know why you've put this on my heart, but I'm just going to pray about it. And the next thing he knows, he starts making connections for me, ones that I wasn't looking for. And then giving. Well, give what? Well, they're always asking for money. Like Marty has been telling us, right? So, but you give your time, and it takes time to pray. So if you're praying, then you're giving, not to get you out of it. But the other one is to go, and then it's how. So Joel Murphy is one of the contacts up there in Big Timber that I have been contacting, because they have a building. There literally was a church there, Southern Baptist Church, but it is no longer. But the building still remains, and it's a really nice building. And he has kind of taken the call, and him and his wife have moved over there. They're some good old boys from Alabama, and he's got that Alabama twang. But just a great couple that are there. And anyway, he's beginning something that he's never done before. So he's kind of sifting through the weeds of everything while he's up there. And one of the things that he's asked about is to just pray for a person of peace and Lydia, and I'm kind of hoping my daughter is that person, because he's already made contact. They've been over at his house and had dinner. I think that's great. But he's just looking for points of contact. Where can we minister in the community? She brought a connection through the high school, so they've been ministering to the high school, which is a great action. And they just moved there, so they're just trying to get involved in the community. It's always kind of hard this time of year, because what we're going to experience this next week is exactly what they've been experiencing. So that's what the weather's like, except they get a little bit more wind. It's a little bit, their wind is more like Western Kansas. So some of the things that he's talked about and gotten involved with is just deep cleaning, and they've been a part of trying to get connected with the senior center and the community there. They're strengthening community connections. One of the things that they always ask for up in there is, this is not just Big Timber, but this is in several churches up there, is training and guiding church leaders. They need support. And that was one of the things that struck me when I was there, that I'm like, here we are in Bethel, and I know we're praying for leaders to rise up. They need that mentorship up there for leaders, just to counsel with, just to talk with. So I know I pushed that out to several within even the elders at the church, that they just need someone to support them and to talk with a lot of times, because it's a lonely job what they're doing. And one of the other things that Joel and I have talked about, and also there's another guy with him, Daryl. I've been up there, but one of the things that I'm putting out there to all of us here at Bethel, and this is the biggest thing, is going on a vision trip this year up there, so that I've seen it, but it would be great for others within Bethel to see it. And you may say, well, I might be interested in doing that. When would it be? Well, it could be anywhere from May to October. Don't think I want to be there in the wintertime right now, okay? A little windy, a little cold. I talk to my daughter too much, and I'm like, wow, okay, that's cold because they basically have a wind tunnel right through there. But 3 to 5 people. So if this is something that you would like to explore sometime this year, to go up there in May, it could be June, July, August, September, October, sometime in there. I've been up there probably almost every one of those months at some time or another, and explore partnerships with some of the churches that I threw up on that map that are in Bozeman, that are in Livingston, that are in Big Timber. They also have other church starts as well that are going up there. I would love for you to contact me and let me know, because to me, if you have a sense that you want to be involved, that you want to take bring the gospel to a frontier that's tough, I will say this: they've said it to me, and the more time I've spent up there, I've realized, Montanans, they don't ask for help. The locals, they do not ask for help. That's just part of it, and they're very wary of anybody who's not a local. They don't really want to talk to you because you're one of the Los Angeles crowd. You're just the tourist. You're just someone else. So you really have to get up there and begin to be a part of it and to begin to get involved. There are several churches in Missouri, even in Georgia and Alabama, that do have partnerships and are going up there and working on short-term mission trips, going up there with the churches already. And to me, it would be a great deal. Not only is that, because when you do go on a short-term mission trip and your heart is right, and sometimes if your heart isn't right, God moves in your heart. He works in your heart. He softens your heart because you're with brothers and sisters in Christ during that time. You're worshiping the Lord together. You're serving the Lord together, and it gives more back than what you go up there to serve, and you end up being served in so many ways. And so I just encourage any of you who might have a heart for the gospel and going up there, just give me a holler, because I think it would be a great opportunity for us in this church and for many to get an idea of what short-term missions would be like. And this is my little addition, since many of you know that I like to camp and backpack and go back into the wilderness areas. If you go with me on a vision trip, you could always go take this backpacking trail here. This is on my list. This gets back up into bear country. Just bring a gun. You bring a gun with you. It's going to have to be bigger than the one I've got, because mine, I'd probably have to unload the whole clip just to maybe hopefully get them to stop coming at me. But no, that's just a joke. You don't have to. I am going to do that one day. That'd be a nice 3-4 day trip, because you don't have to go too many miles. Any questions?
So, just a question. So if we give money for this, is it a separate thing to missions, or does the money that we give go?
I'm going to bring your husband up here. He's going to answer this question for you.
I was
Brandon.
asking so that other people would know.
Right.
So part of this process is the fact that so how do we get money to give toward this in
No,
particular?
I'm saying if
or?
we give money personally, do we note it, hey, this is going towards?
No, not quite yet. Okay.
Okay, so we just give to missions.
Yeah, just give to missions. So yeah, we're trying to, so part of this process is the missions team and the elders exploring the potential future of how we're going to do missions at Bethel Baptist. And these are some of the opportunities that have been put before us. And so right now, we're not earmarking money for this specific thing. At some point in time, we may get to that level type of thing, but right now, we're just exploring these as possibilities. He's talking about a trip of 5 or 6 people going to Montana. It might be a vision trip to see how we could partner with the people of Montana, with the churches of Montana, potentially send some people, or maybe just send like a youth group up and do some work for the summer, those types of things.
So then you pay for yourself?
Yeah, you would,
Yeah.
right now you would
Okay.
be paying for yourself and
Okay.
that type of thing, so.
Okay,
Make sense?
got it.
Any other questions?
And we don't have to go on the bear hunt with you?
No. I was just bringing that up as a joke.
Just joking.
I haven't found too many takers, especially in Bethel, to ever go with me on a backpacking trip.
You don't have to hunt bear, they'll hunt you.
I know, right? We don't have to hunt. But bear spray doesn't work?
It does.
Oh, okay.
I've never had to use it. I've had 4 encounters and never had to use it.
Are they black or?
No, they were brown.
Brown.
Yeah, and grizzly. Yeah. But they usually don't bother you if you don't bother them.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Natural.
So just to recap where we're at, we're talking about witnesses to Judea, which is the surrounding areas, which we're kind of identifying as North America. I think a big emphasis, and there's going to be more clarity on this. We're the categories are not exactly like this must fit in here or whatnot. We're just trying to figure out where we as a church are going to focus, and I think one of those is definitely going to be Montana, in whatever that looks like currently, probably short-term trips. I want to talk a little bit about my history with short-term mission trips, because like Greg, I think it's next week we're going to talk more about to the ends of the earth, reaching the unreached, reaching the unengaged, the people that don't even, there's not even a strategy for going after them, that type of thing. So we want to eventually get to that place where that's what we're doing, and we'll still have aspects of that. But the truth is that you need to have short-term trips to kind of catch the vision for people. That's where I started. I went on a short-term trip to El Salvador, which to me was pretty much like the end of the earth at that point. This was about 12, 15 years ago, somewhere in there. And like Greg said, I'm not sure how much we did, but I can tell you that we were touched, our group. It was very impactful. And from that day forward, after my trip there, I had a vision that I wanted to be a part of missions. I wanted to be out there engaging people that have never heard the gospel of Christ or other things, serving the poor, those types of things in service of the gospel. So after that, I'll back up just for a second. I was a business owner. I owned a home cleaning franchise, my wife and I, for 20 years. And through that, I had a desire to teach other people about business. And so I came into contact with an organization called Partners Worldwide, which works with organizations that are in the developing world on helping them to solve poverty through the gospel and through the church. Specifically, for the last 10 years or so, I've been working with an organization in El Salvador called Enlace, which has been set up to actually do community transformation through churches, at local churches. And so they go to the local church and they coach them and teach them how to reach out to their community and to make a difference and to actually transform. And so a lot of big mission organizations go to a community and they say, hey, we drill wells. Here's the 30 best places in this region to drill wells. And so we're going to go out and do that. And nobody sat down and taught the community how to think through the real multidimensional poverty challenges that they were facing. And so a lot of times they drill these wells and they're in the wrong spot. They get, the wrong member of the community is the one where they has control over it, and they take advantage of people by this, all these things that can kind of happen when you don't engage the community. And so I have been working with in LASE for, like I said, about 10 years, and specifically on business and economic development work, micro lending and creation of opportunities for jobs and that type of thing. But they also have a piece of what they do that is designed to have churches from the United States go down on short-term trips to partner with the community once projects have been identified. So I'll give you an example. There was a community that they had been working with where the church and the community leaders and the mayor and everybody had identified several projects, and they worked on them. They'd done sanitation, they'd gotten clean water, they did a hospital, clinic, but what was happening was their local school, the gangs were coming into the local school and recruiting the kids into the gangs when they were 9, 10, 12 years old, and the community could no longer send their kids to that school because they didn't want to lose their kids to the gangs. Because one of the first things that you have to do when they recruit you in to be a gang member, even at 12 years old, is maybe go in and kill somebody. And a lot of times they would be able to go in and recruit these kids. And so what the community identified was that they needed to build a wall around their school so that the gang members were kept away and there were control points. These are very, very poor communities. We're talking the average salary might be, $1 a month or something like that. I mean, we're talking about very, very poor communities. And so they identified the needs, and one of the things that the community has to do is raise 50% of the resources for the project. That could be in labor, that can be in money, that could be in whatever it takes. But in LASE comes in, they bring the engineering expertise and those types of things. And then they raise funds from churches in the US and Canada to meet the other 50%. So, for example, what a church would have gone down, they would have raised the funds, they would have contributed, and then sent a short-term trip down to help work on building out those projects. So that's a little bit about Enlace. Like I said, I've primarily worked with them in economic development, but I do think there might be opportunities in the future for us to do some short-term trips down there. I do have a short video outlining what maybe what a trip has looked like, so I'll show you that. Oh, the volume. Can everybody hear that? Is it too loud?
Mi nombre es Jonathan Alfaro, todos me conocen por el hermano.
Is that better?
Hemos venido trabajando en la comunidad de Guarnesia hace unos 10 años. We are working on repairing the ramp that goes to the clinic. Estamos trabajando en este proyecto por causa de que era una necesidad. La gente se caía allí.
Sí, mucha ayuda para los discapacitados. Hay muchas personas que se habían caído en esa rampa, entonces personas que venían a curarse y se iban más enfermos.
Tener para el equipo de Willow aquí para mí es una tremenda bendición. Con solo su presencia la gente se siente motivada, se siente oída, importante.
Es muy importante tenerlos en
never seen a local church partner with the community in such wonderful ways. It's so nice to see the police, the city officials, all working together to create the best experience for their community.
The creativeness in solving problems that we would look at and say, I can't do this because I don't have this. They don't see it that way.
Instead of saying, we don't have enough concrete or we don't have this and that, what do we have? Lots of rocks. So there's a riverbed, and so the whole community has been working together to gather rocks. And so the whole foundation of the ramp going up to the clinic is made of rock.
It seems like you automatically bond by having to do everything as a group, and how you feel like your accomplishment is much deeper with more people.
I was able to meet different people, and I met a guy named Melvin that he was attacked by a gang with machetes, and he was almost dying, and he was found the next day and took to the hospital. And 6 months after, he wanted to take his life because of the way he was looking, and he couldn't do anything. But through some friends of the church, he gave his life to Christ, and now he's working with us. And that's the power of God, and that's the love of God that is available to all of us.
I was apprehensive coming into this trip at first, taking me completely out of my comfort zone. But what I've learned is that Jesus is here with us, and God is with us at all times.
I've just learned in this trip that God is anywhere.
The El Salvador church is just so small but such a big community, especially with Pastor Johnny and the way that he uses anything he has to just give to the community.
This is a great opportunity to see God in action through the eyes of other people, because you never know how God will use your smiles, your service, your work. We sometimes believe God will just speak to us through something very loud, but there are many times that God uses a very soft voice to let you know that He wants to use your life to make a difference in the lives of somebody else.
So I've been to El Salvador and other countries in Central America, working within LASE and some other organizations through Partners Worldwide now, at least over 20 times. And there are so many stories, and I'd be happy to share them with you. Happy to share many stories of just the way that God has worked through them. I think that from a community development, like alleviating the pain of poverty and suffering, and also the pain of ultimate suffering of hell and separation from God. I haven't seen any organization as successful as Enlace. They work with several hundred churches and communities throughout El Salvador, Guatemala, Nepal, and Nicaragua. And communities have truly been transformed, and there are opportunities for members of Bethel to, get involved and reach out to me if you're interested. But I don't want to. I want to also make sure that we consider the fact that there are many opportunities to take short-term trips to areas around North America, and maybe you'll go on a trip and maybe you'll find something that you're passionate about and interested in, and maybe you can come back and tell the church about it, and maybe that's an opportunity for the Lord to say, that's where I want to be. So I think what Greg would say is, we're not saying that everybody in Bethel at this point needs to go out and be involved in Montana. I'm not saying I want everybody to come be involved in Enlace. I'm saying, as a philosophy of missions, what our church is wanting to do is come alongside the members of our congregation on areas that God has put in their heart, and help the whole community of the body of our church come alongside you and do ministry in whatever that looks like. And some areas will have more focus on it, and some areas it'll be just areas for prayer, or maybe it's an individual thing that you work on and every once in a while you come back and update the church. or maybe it's something that turns into a major focus for our body. So again, if you're interested in helping us work through that strategy, please come and see myself or another member of the missions committee, and we would love to have your vision and help. So again, let me open it up for questions. Perfect. Well, we've got a little time, so take your time and talk. You can come up and talk to Greg or I, or any other member of the missions committee if you have any questions. Let me pray before we finish. Actually, Father, thank you for the fact that you sent your Son to die on the cross to make a way for us to be reconciled with you in spite of our sin and rebellion. I thank you, Father, that we have a story to tell, that we have the ability to share good news with a lost and suffering world. I pray for the people of Montana, the people of Central America, El Salvador, in our nation, Father, let me pray first for the people of our church that are in need. Let me pray next for the people that us as members of the body come into contact with, and organizations that we are supporting here locally, like the Boys Club, the Boys Home, and other ministries. I want to pray, Father, for areas where we can take short-term trips to, and also for those at the end of the world that have never even heard the name Jesus, and nobody has even thought to try to go to them and share the gospel. So that's very overwhelming for us, and yet you are God, and you are in control and know all things, and you have a plan for reaching the end of the world, or reaching the ends of the world with the gospel, and we want to be a small part of that, maybe a big part of that. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.